Content provided at the event is for general information only, not intended to provide specific advice or recommendation for any individual. Any performance reference is historical, and there is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Any economic forecast set forth during the event may not develop as predicted. There can be no guarantee that any strategy will be successful. These thoughts and opinions are those of Gimbal Financial and do not represent the views of LPL Financial. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA and SIPC, and investment advice is offered through Gimbal Financial, registered investment advisor, and separate entity from LPL. Good morning. It's been a couple of weeks since I've had to do that.
Doug, how are you today?
Stayed out really late last night. I went down to Fountain Square, and I was I think I was probably the oldest guy at the concert, which that's cool with. Keeps you young. But yeah, stayed out till about midnight last night. I haven't done that in a long time with my brother-in-law. We went to see a band that he liked from way back in the day. This band's been touring for 20-something years. They roll around in a 1975 huge, I forget the name of the bus. It's not even a pre-bus. It's like, I saw the bus. It's old school, and they go across the United States in this thing. It's huge. Looks like an old Greyhound bus, and it runs on vegetable oil. These guys are real hipsters, and I tell you what, I just had a great time, but I'm going to have another cup of coffee for sure.
Amanda, you know who Johnny Carson is?
I do.
When Doug was hammering his notes on the table, it reminded me of that's how Johnny Carson would do his.
That's why. So that's what he did. Several radio guys, TV guys, they like to do that to add a little flavor.
So how about Greg Gutfeld? Do you know that name?
No. How do I not?
I just learned it last night. He's, I guess, the #1 guy on late night comedy now, like late night talk shows. Just past Colbert.
Okay.
There you go. You heard it here first, Doug.
Well, I'm not going to stay up late again tonight. I'll be the first one in bed. I think Carmel plays Fishers maybe tonight.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
I'll probably, but after that, right. Okay.
Where's it at?
I think it's at Carmel. Be good.
Sweet.
So our one of the great things in Indiana you have available to you, I don't know that I would say we do much in setting these up for people. We can coach you with them as an Indiana 529. Indiana allows some special benefits to the citizens for that, but the regulators, our back office, I don't think they really appreciate the benefit to people, and so they make it so hard for us to even help people with them. It's almost comical, but we can coach you to think through this. But anyway, I mentioned that because we are getting number 3 to graduate this weekend, and we use the 529 to help us along the way. And I encourage you to take a quick look at that. This is not a specific recommendation or no guarantees whatsoever. It's just saying there are some benefits if you happen to be a Hoosier citizen.
And this is an observation over the last 20 years that 529's been out. Just congratulations to several of you who've done this. And if you're interested in doing it, I just want to encourage you to start small. It's not like you have to contribute the $5,000 to get the max 20% credit. Just do what you can. Maybe it's $25 a month or something like that, but you'll be in Keith's shoes quickly. And I'm finding myself there, where we're envisioning a few years out that we want to be in Keith's shoes too. We want to be at the graduation.
Before you guys know it, Doug, before you know it, you'll be getting knee surgery and a CPAP machine. So just be careful when you say Keith's shoes.
Maybe even sooner than you thought.
That's hilarious. That is so funny.
It all comes at you so fast.
That actually transitions well over to what I was wanting to talk about today. If you've been on this show or signed up to watch this show, in the past, I've mentioned my friend Brad over at Alger a few times. I think Brad is just one of the most gifted persons I've ever met. In this industry has a lot of really neat people. But meeting Brad, Keith and I took a trip to New York this was a few years ago. I think we went out and visited Value Line. We went and visited Alger. Did we see anybody else on that trip that comes to mind?
Monique.
Yeah, Monique at the Walgreens, or no, Dwayne Reed, who told Keith he had an old school name. She wore a raspberry beret, by the way. But
that's a princely idea.
That it is. But Brad over at Alger, I just want to give a shout out again to Brad. He writes some great papers on innovation and change, and we all have biases from our past or the way we see things, but there are positive disruptions happening left and right. And a couple of the big ones are just technology and healthcare. Thinking through what is happening today. I don't know about you guys, but I'm hearing a lot of talk about what's going on with inflation. And I saw somewhere, I think this was an Investor's Business Daily Report. You can find this stuff online, but used cars prices jumped like 30% year over year. New car price jumped 11% year over year. And so there's a lot of evidence for inflationary results out there. However, Smart Brad wrote this really cool note on what he sees happening. And he says, hey, look, it wasn't that long ago that the typical wealthy American had a really nice Nikon or Canon camera. They had a TomTom. They had a set of encyclopedias. You had all this stuff, and you probably had $10,000 worth of stuff out there to help you get through life. And it's all on your iPhone today, or it's all on your Android phone today. And so even though the prices of things are going up, the amount of stuff that it would take, maybe your expenditures have gone down because you just don't have as much stuff to get you through the day anymore. He goes on and he talks about how these types of efficiencies are increasing productivity in the workplace, giving people more time to daydream and to go on excursions and do fun things, leisure type things. I mean, the amount of pools that have been dug this past year, maybe that's a result of productivity in the workplace, working from home. I don't know, but there are different ways of looking at things, and I'm optimistic about the future for investors. I think growth companies are looking good, where you have these types of innovations that are coming out, changing the way our healthcare system is, changing the way we operate at work. I mean, I like to watch the Manning cast on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
And I noticed Joe Buck, they interviewed Joe Buck, and he did his whole interview with these Apple AirPod Pros. Whereas, probably even a couple of years ago, he couldn't have done that from wherever he was. Keith, we couldn't have done this with you where you are. And so the innovation and the speed of change, yes, it costs more. These things cost more than my Sony Walkman did, a couple of years back, but they're a heck of a lot better.
Yeah.
So that's my message is you're going to see some things out there. You're going to see inflation numbers, but take into account the speed of efficiencies. It just might be worth the price hike.
And is that article something we can include on the notes of this podcast when we post it out on the website?
I'm looking to
think
see.
so.
I'm looking to see.
Up to see what else.
I'll review it. It might be one of these for investors, investment professionals, eyes only type things. But I'll look at it, and if we can, we'll post it. It's really good.
Well, one of the things I was working on this week was some training to help our decrepit trainee. So some videos I put together for him this week, and Eric had knee surgery and got a CPAP, in case you didn't get the internal jokes going on. So,
And
one
he's
of,
not, you guys have seen him, he's not older than 30 or older than 25.
I think he turns 25 next month. So anyway, Malcolm Gladwell came out with this idea of a 10,000 hour rule, that if you do something for 10,000 hours, you've got, the potential for a lot of skills in those. And I was working on that and part of a training this week. And 5 years of a 40-hour week is basically 10,000 hours.
So I was reaching for my calculator there, Keith. I'm glad that you did the math for me.
Yeah. So those of you that say you've had a career for 20 years in a certain niche, maybe you worked in the chemicals or the pharmaceutical or whatever industry you might have worked in, you bring a lot of value to the table. And that's really an incredible thing to help others. That idea of knowledge brings efficiency to situations, which is kind of a deflationary thing. The more you have to spend time on things, it becomes more inflationary. And so the idea of valuing other people's time and their wisdom is a big deal.
Yeah, I don't know that all the government data reflects that, what you just said. And so that might be even another viewer's bias, is in this economy, we're going to view a lot of data, but to see the speed and efficiencies of those 10,000 hours, what it actually does for you, for your team, for your family, it's almost unquantifiable, the speed.
Well, even I would say even beating like our drums, even if somebody brand new came into Gimbal and brought their finances in and just laid them out on the table for us to look at, my guess is in our brains, we are projecting things that they can't even imagine, that we can look at a situation and see problems they can't see. We can probably do all that within 15 or 20 minutes. It's all going on in here, which isn't even reflected on the internet. And so that's a benefit that our clients say get from having the number of years of experience that we have, that they can compound their own energies by just sitting down with us and using the observations, insight, and wisdom we can bring to the table for them.
One of our friends, he's a physician, and he's doing some consulting work, and he gets paid a pretty terrific hourly wage. I mean, it's like, I would say NBA type hourly wage, but he deserves it because of what you just said. I mean, he can solve a problem in less than an hour that would take a team of new people trying to figure it out, or a new business trying to figure something out. It'd take them months. And so sometimes it's worth the premium for the speed of the advice.
Yeah, I think some of the stuff we do behind the scenes that I don't know that we whine too much. I whine a little bit about it, is that I would guess most of our regulators have never been in the industry, have never sat down with a client, and they're creating, executing, and implementing rules for which they don't really know the intent or origin. And so the idea that we have to operate within these parameters is we don't talk about it much, but it affects how clearly we can even communicate. There's things we can't even say that are, in my opinion, kind of goofy. But I was looking at a highly intelligent, very skilled person's retirement account this week, and the organization for which it's with, simply, they're not called fiduciaries, I don't think, but they send statements and assessments to them, and they do it in a stoplight formation, so that it tells the person that you're either red, yellow, or green. Red meaning you have really screwed this thing up, and green meaning you've really knocked the ball out of the park and you're doing a great job. And I've looked at 2 people recently that I thought had knocked the ball out of the park. One of them was between yellow and red on their assessment, and one was a solid red or yellow. And I think, wow, there is a real struggle for people, particularly as one gets older and more mature. Sometimes the brain cells don't connect as quickly and can't put pieces together. And if all you have is a red, yellow, and a green, you could have a lot of unnecessary anxiety and maybe saving more money than you really need to. Who talks about that?
Yeah, the workplace stoplight is not going to tell the whole, or the workplace retirement plan stoplight picture is not going to tell the whole story.
No, yeah, that was, I was intrigued by that idea that you can assess somebody's situation with just a stoplight is kind of foolish, I think.
Sometimes making it too simple is too simple, isn't it?
Well, I haven't ever heard of a mortgage company that said you couldn't borrow more usually, or an investment company that said you shouldn't save more.
Yeah, give us more money. How do we get paid again? Yeah.
The more we lend or the more we manage, the higher we get paid, right? So nobody talks about that component of it.
Along the same lines of investor education, I want to go and highlight and tout unashamed of the Gimbal YouTube channel. The Gimbal YouTube channel is a great place to go land if you're looking to learn more about investing. Every now and then I have, I'll say, high school or college kids reach out to me and say, I've got $1,000 I want to buy, and it's normally some type of cryptocurrency or some kind of movie theater or video game thing type investment. And I just want to encourage you to steer your ship over to Gimbal's channel. Keith has done a number of curious investors. I was on there this morning and I just thought, wow, we've really built up a good data bank. And you might just scroll through and see, like, on the titles if something grabs your attention, that you could pick up on a bit of information that could change the trajectory and the amount of time that it would take you to learn this stuff, all just from, checking out the channel.
What about the buttonwood tree? You guys know the buttonwood tree?
Nope. Client of ours has a peach tree, which I can't wait to check out, but I don't know of the buttonwood.
Buttonwood tree, about 1792. Supposedly these stockbrokers huddled underneath the buttonwood tree to exchange shares of stocks.
I thought that was the bucket shop.
Nope, that bucket shops came along after that. The buttonwood tree was just when there really wasn't any structure whatsoever. So if you had a publicly traded company or shares you want, I don't know if they even called it publicly traded, but if you had shares of stock you wanted to trade, it was Wild West. And you didn't have copy machines there, but you probably had a calligrapher who was handwriting stock certificate for you. And so all you had to do, is basically counterfeiting is what they were doing. And so the Buttonwood Agreement allowed these folks to standardize who had kind of a good reputation, who had the ability to stay within a few short parameters and trade, shares of companies. That was in the late 1700s. And then maybe a decade or a century later, you had Charles Dow who came along, and Dow came up with the Dow theory, which the Dow theory is really pretty much what we've been talking about on Friday mornings when we show you what's going on in the marketplace, what's going on in the very short-term trends, the midterm trends, and the long-term trends. And that's Charles Dow was a journalist, and he was trying to figure out how, as a journalist, I can report what's going on in the marketplace. Like if there wasn't an index, which there wasn't during his time, you really didn't know what was going on in the market because you had no way to gather information back then about what the general trend of the market was versus, an individual company who stock price is doing something. So anyway, I just mentioned that because I think two of the prime research people that we purchase research from are both a bit anxious about this market right now. And one of them I read today, he said that stocks are acting poorly. And the other one kind of said the markets aren't reflecting that. And so you have the indices, which is kind of what Charles Dow kind of helped bring to the evolution with the Dow Jones Industrial Average. but you also have the reality of what's going on below the water surface out there.
Yeah, and that's that's information that on a quick Google search you can find and see, like the S&P 500. 7% of the S&P 500 is Apple, and you have Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and just a few companies really make up a large chunk of the S&P 500. And in a few of those companies have had an awesome last couple of weeks, which has been great. And that's really propped up some of the support inside the major indexes. But the underlying companies underneath, like we've talked about in this show several times, they are trading below their 50-day moving average, below their 200-day moving average. And don't take that as us being pessimists. It's just there's times to be a little more aggressive, and then there's times to have some staying power and utilize safety. And one way to do that is just by not participating. And it is hard because that goes against everything that we're taught. We're taught, get in the game. You only see results if you play. And so it's hard to have some sitting power. And for those of you who are retired and you're not contributing to the retirement plan anymore, you're not building your nest egg like you once were. It's still hard to sit out, because you need income coming in the door. You need growth from your account for the future. But one of the best things you can do when the markets are rough or showing signs of selling is just develop some sitting power.
And after that sitting power, Doug and I were talking this week about the impact of resilience. After any time you hit a kind of a weak point, there's always resilience after that. Isn't really emphasized so much in our industry, but it's something to keep in mind, that there's light at the end of the tunnel no matter what.
Amanda brought that word up over lunch, and it's such a great word. Some of our friends, they have that as part of their core family values, is resilience. Our friend said she knows she can't protect her kids from everything, but she knows that she can speak resilience into them, and that they could have a resilient life no matter what they go through. And I just, that's such a beautiful word, and can make a really great story.
Well, there's an old saying that basically says that adversity leads to perseverance, and perseverance proven character, and proven character hope. And so if you look at adversity as your enemy, rather than thinking about what the resilience from that adversity will build into you, it changes, I think, the perspective a little bit. I was in a conversation with a friend last night who had to pull some political strings to get into a hospital room with his mother who has dementia, because they weren't going to let him in the hospital where she had COVID. And it's a hard thing just going to a hospital with a parent with dementia, let alone when they're not even going to let somebody be in there. And so what I was able to do is, from the difficulties that when I went through that journey a number of years ago with mom, have some compassion and encouragement to kind of encourage him to keep the faith and just enjoy this moment in a weird kind of way, that this is really a way you can express love to your mom, where she won't really unconditional love, where she won't be able to appreciate what you're doing. But that's like getting yourself up off the floor in a big way, to have that kind of resilience.
And that's a good plug and reminder for 2022 goals. It might be to make sure you, your parents, kids getting ready to go to college, make sure you've got power of attorney documents ready to rock and roll. Those types of documents in play will help you for when events come your way that you just didn't see coming. And that is true for the kid going off to college, all the way to the parent who might be struggling with mental capacities.
I had a highlight that I shared with you this week, Doug, that we got a long-term care policy approved for a family member who I was working and struggling to help them with. But that idea of long-term care coverage is really a big deal. Connie and I have that, and I encourage you that if you haven't considered it, be sure to talk to your Gimbal financial professional to consider the pros and cons of why you may or may not want it.
And I'll throw this color in there with that is, you know, this is Keith's profession, right? But Keith told me this is like top 5 biggest achievements here in the last few years was helping a family member get approved. It's that tough. And we're in the business and it's still tough. And so if you've been going through something like that and it's pushback after pushback or 2-hour phone call with some insurance company or government agency, that's real. We feel your pain and it could take months, but just keep fighting it, because, you know, to have some wins like that's just huge.
Well, we were talking a little bit about the markets. When I looked at the moving averages last night, they improved a little bit. We had a good Monday in the market this week, but not really much incremental buying has been going on. There's not just been a lot of people trading. What normally will happen is the last couple of weeks of the year, people will look at their stocks and get frustrated with the things that haven't performed very well, and then they'll just throw the baby out with the bathwater. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of stocks that haven't performed this well even get hit a little bit harder in the next couple of weeks as people take their losses on that to offset any gains they had. And I would encourage you as well to realize there will be probably, if you've got mutual funds outside of us or other places that are not in retirement accounts, everything I'm looking at suggests there's going to be some pretty substantial capital gains in those. I've looked at probably 10 or 20 different funds in the last couple of weeks just to see kind of a benchmark what's going on.
Yeah. Capital gains have definitely been on the uptick, even really the last 2 years. And you know, paying capital gains, nobody likes to pay taxes. I mean, it has an effect on other areas of life, could have an effect on your Social Security payments. I mean, it does have effects on things, but it has been good to see the returns and positive impact on people's portfolios. So that's not a bad thing. And even when I look at what's working now, it is really hard to find something beyond maybe a big index that's working well. A couple of the places that I thought might start working well, like even in the commodities, haven't worked well. And so again, sometimes it's just okay to sit out.
Well, we are going to sit in a graduation ceremony tomorrow morning, which I'm thrilled about. Tongue in cheek, I appreciate that my kids graduate. The ceremonies to me, a lot of funny clothes, a lot of pompous verbiage, but the smile on my daughter's face is worth it all. So that's my activity for this weekend.
Congratulations, Casey, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks so much.
Look forward to it.